Okay, thank you all for being here. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and introduce our wonderful health promotion specialist from Columbia Health and Alice Health Promotion, Kelly Gorman. Give it up for Kelly. Thank you, everybody.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. Antonia, thank you for such a warm welcome. I'm so excited to be here with you all today. I'm going to take a quick moment and share my screen, and then we can jump in to the fun of our time together. All right, so welcome again. My name is Kelly Gorman. I'm a health promotion specialist with Alice Health Promotion, and we're here together today for Hocus Focus, thinking about time management. I am excited to be here with you all today, and I will let you know that I did watch Hocus Pocus last night, so we're gonna get all the references in there. We're gonna be bringing the movie out, and also talking about and learning about some great time management strategies and principles as well. So before we dive in too far, I do want to share a little bit about where I'm joining you all from today, in case you are unfamiliar. And that is from Alice Health Promotion, which is one unit within Columbia Health. And so I put all these units up on the screen just so you can see. There are 6 units within Columbia Health. We are all here to support you. And something that's interesting and important to know is that we're all confidential resources. So if you're unsure of where to go for something, a confidential resource can be a great place to start. And any of the units that you see on your screen right now can be a place that could help you. With that, more specifically, Alice Health Promotion is my team. And what we do is we work at all different levels of the university to promote health and well-being in a huge variety of ways. So on the screen, you can see some of our branded initiatives. You may be familiar with Go Ask Alice, which is our online question and answer resource. It has very well and thoroughly researched questions written in ways where it feels like your friend is talking to you. We've answered thousands of questions throughout the past 25 years. I would highly recommend checking that out if you have a health-related question. The other thing I will highlight here that many folks are familiar with is called Friend to Friend, and that is a peer-to-peer helper helping and kind of mental health crisis intervention type workshop. So that's one that we offer every semester. We'll be offering one in November, and we regularly partner with organizations to do that type of training as well. So that's Alice Health Promotion. That's where I come from. And today we are going to be talking about time management. So before we jump in, I have some goals for engagement. So you'll notice I'm not giving you your learning objectives. I'm not giving you what we're going to get out of this, because I don't want to put you in that type of a chronically evaluative mindset. So instead, what I want you to do is I want you to engage with this session with just 2 things in mind. You can think about them as goals, or you can think about them even as challenges. But I just want you to listen for what's one thing that you feel curious about? What's one thing that you may want to learn a little bit more about? And then what's just one strategy or concept that feels applicable and realistic for you? Some of the stuff that we talk about might not apply to you. You might not see yourself in it, and it may not make sense to you, and that's okay. I just want you to listen for what are the things that do make sense to you? What are the things that you feel like could be applicable or helpful for you in your life? So this session, we are going to talk about time management strategies. We're going to talk about some tools for addressing procrastination. We're going to talk about building balanced schedules and resources that can provide support for your time management. With all this, you will be looking at some screenshots from the Hocus Pocus movie as we go throughout, and maybe we'll even apply some examples to some of our favorite characters in the movie as well. Who knows? We'll see what happens. But I really want to start by really considering and thinking about what is time management and what do we mean when we say it. So the other thing you'll notice is that we're going to use some poll everywhere in our session together. So I'm going to ask that we put the poll everywhere link in the chat feature. I'm interested to hear from you all. What is time management? So you can open up a new tab in your browser and go to pollev.com/AliceHP. The link is also in the chat feature right now. And to answer this question, what is time management? You're also welcome to answer in the chat feature if that feels easier for you as well. All right, I'm seeing task allocation, making time for things that need to get done, making sure to stay organized, a way of organizing your day. Discipline, yeah, that probably plays into it. Balance, yep. To allocate time properly so that you can get things done and have a life. Being productive and quick with our tasks, creating structure. I see some in the chat feature too. I'm seeing prioritizing tasks, balancing things by what's most important and everything getting some time. Prioritizing your day, being organized and productive. Strategies used to make sure you are in control of your time. Effectively achieving your goals and dreams. I love that. Yes, we're going to achieve our goals and dreams. Setting priorities, organizing your schedule to keep on top of your to-do activities, making things done timely, good use of time. Awesome. So you all are hitting on some really important things. I'm definitely seeing and recognizing elements of there's a goal orientation to it, right? We all have things that are really important to us and they all require that we spend time on them. And how do we divide this finite thing that we have, which is time, to use it for all of these things that are important to us? There's different strategies even that I'm seeing. Setting reasonable goals. That might be a strategy for time management. But I'm seeing a lot about prioritizing as well. And that really is kind of hitting home and thinking about what is most important and how are we allocating our time according to what is most important. Awesome. So some things I will share with you. Are here are two ways to think about time management as well. So it's the process of organizing and planning your time and how to divide it between your specific priorities. You all named that already. And good time management enables you to work efficiently and find balance, right? So we see a lot of efficient in the chat, but also on the poll everywhere before. So we know that time management is essential, right? It's essential for us if we want to achieve and do the things that are important to us, recognizing that time is something that's finite. You could argue that the Sanderson sisters had to do a bit of time management to beat the sunrise, which would, make them disappear. So, maybe we have some examples there. They had a lot of important stuff to accomplish before the sun rose. And, in essence, they were practicing some time management as well. So now we ask the question, why care about time management? Right? Why is it important? Many people, they may not have thought or learned about time management formally before they've come to Columbia. So to have a session where you think and just have, 50, 60 minutes dedicated to learning about time management, thinking about it on your own, that can be really, really helpful. The next thing is we need to care about time management because it's essential to meeting our goals. Someone said in the poll everywhere, meeting our goals, but also our dreams. How important is that, right? So it's super, super important. And the last thing I'll throw out there is that time management is a key component of self-care. And the better that we are at managing our time, the more time we will be able to have to take care of ourselves, to do the things that nourish our bodies and our minds and our souls. So I'm interested to hear in the chat feature on this one, how has the start of the semester, we're I guess midway through now, but how has that affected the ways that you manage your time? And what are just some things in general that take up your time? What are things that take up your time? I see meeting. Yeah, you probably have a lot of meetings. Clubs, yep. Phone, yeah. That could be talking to family and friends on the phone. That could be scrolling social media. That could be so many things. Struggling with the new semester, exhausted with in-person meetings. Yeah, in-person meetings require a different type of energy than what we've had to give for the past year and a half. So that's really important. Studying now almost 100% of free time. Yeah, so there's a lot of studying to do. Social homework takes up time. Having freedom is a double-edged sword. Wow, isn't that the truth? Social media, assignments, phone, classwork, readings, procrastination. We'll talk about that. I see homework plus 1,000 problem sets take up time. Worrying takes up time. Yeah, we'll actually talk about that later on too. Readings take up time. Keeping track of the core assignments and readings. Yeah, so there are a lot of things that you all are naming that take up your time. So some of them related to your classes and maybe your academics, and some related to your interests and your life outside of your classes. And I think I see Greta said maintaining balance. That's so important. So as we're thinking about all these different things that take up our time, what does it look like to have balance? And how can we strive for that? Awesome. So you all hit on some of the most important ones. And I'll throw up a list now too, in recognizing that there are factors that impact our time choice decisions, right? So we know that some common things include a change in patterns. So when you shift into the semester, that's going to change the ways that you spend your time. Folks even mentioned the shift from online or virtual meetings and classes to in-person classes. And I don't know about you, but like if you're walking across Columbia's campus, it takes you maybe 10, 15 minutes you have to now plan between meetings. So you can't schedule a meeting that ends at 3:30 if you have another one that starts at 3:30. But in the Zoom world, like, yep, I can click the X really quickly and I can press the start button really quickly. So I could make that 1 minute transition. But now that I have, in-person meetings, I'm like, okay, you have to plan an extra 15 minutes for your transition to another physical space and then start the meeting there. And then probably another 15 minutes after that to plan whatever physical transition you're going to do after that as well. So any bit of change in patterns will impact our abilities and the decisions that we make around time choice. Something that we see at Columbia a bit is a pattern of being overscheduled. This is related to something we'll name in a few bullet points, but so many people are overscheduled. And when I say this, it's your friends that have leadership positions in 3 different clubs, and they're members of 4 other different clubs, and they're majoring in 4 different things. And sorry, that's an exaggeration, but that is just to say, like, you probably know your peers who are involved in so many different things, and just getting on their schedule for something takes a while. For so many people and in so many parts of our society, there's kind of this stigma associated with having free time. And it's like, the more scheduled you are, the more important you are. And so many people, we all schedule ourselves really, really kind of harshly in some ways, but also in some ways, that's what's needed to get to your next goal, right? If people have lofty goals and they're like, okay, I know I need to be involved in these certain things to be competitive in this way for my next step, it's going to mean that you have a busy schedule. So there's so many different things that impact that. And we do know that folks do stretch themselves thin, right? There is a pattern of being overscheduled. Another thing that may impact our time choice decisions is instant gratification. Sometimes we may just kind of want something now, and maybe the schedule goes out the door if it's like if you're just kind of wanting something in a moment and wanting that instant gratification of it. Multitasking is something that impacts our time choice decisions. So sometimes maybe if we're in the virtual world, we think we can take a meeting and also get part of a reading done at the same time. Maybe we're trying to multitask and put that into our schedules. Something I will tell you that may be unfortunate for the multitaskers out there, but a lot of research shows that when we multitask, it actually results in a lower quality and quantity of work. So you might think that you're getting more done because you're doing 2 things at once, but you're actually taking longer to do those 2 things, and the quality of each of those 2 things is also going to be less. So I know it feels like, oh, I want to do everything all at once, and I can do a bit of things, together. If you actually spend more time on one thing individually, you'll do it at a higher quality, and you'll do it a lot faster than if you were trying to do it at the same time as something else. The glorification of busy. So this is related to that pattern of being overscheduled. There is kind of a glorification of being busy. The person that always has somewhere to be, or that person that's always doing something. In so many ways, we glorify that in our society, but also in our culture here at Columbia. And so that's also just something to name out there as well. Sometimes fear of missing out impacts our time choice decisions, right? Sometimes we get FOMO. Oh, well, if I say no to this party, I'm going to miss out on so much fun that everyone else is having. Like, let me just go and get no sleep and do all of the million things that I also need to do this weekend. So sometimes FOMO may be driving some of our decision making. And the last one is a lack of motivation. So sometimes we have a lot of motivation, and that will impact the ways that we make decisions about our time. And sometimes we may experience a lack of motivation, and that will also impact the ways that we make decisions about our time. So those are all some important things there. Back to our important hocus pocus themes is, sometimes your little sister may want to go trick-or-treating. And so sometimes that may impact the way that you spend your time, right? You may get stuck going trick-or-treating or doing things because your family members or peers want you to, and it's important. And sometimes you may see a really cool spooky house where you're like, well, I got to go trick-or-treating there. And so you may see things where you're like, oh, that's really cool. I've never seen that before. Let me go check that out right now. And then you get to meet the Sanderson sisters. But so all of that may impact your time choice decisions as well. All right. So before we move on, we want to talk a little bit about strategies to address FOMO, right? We all experience it. And so it's just something to name. First is be yourself, right? Recognize like what's most important to you. That came up so many times when I asked you all, what is time management? You said prioritizing your time according to your priorities. So a core part of that is being yourself. It's knowing what's most important to you. Also with that is looking out for that kind of green-eyed monster, aka jealousy. So make sure, like, are you feeling this fear of missing out because you're jealous of someone or something? Or what is this kind of feeling really rooted in? Doing some of that reflection. Taking things one day at a time. That's another way to help address different fears of missing out. So recognizing like it's just one day. I may miss out on this thing, but it's just one day in my whole life, and I'm gonna have so many other things that are so fun and that I don't miss out on. So taking it one day, not letting that one day become kind of a generalization for everything and the kind of the rest of your life moving forward. And then another thing that folks find helpful is giving social media in your screens in general just a rest. So there have been a lot of studies that look at social media use, and many people find that the more someone spends time on social media, the more they experience like jealousy, but also kind of less contentment with their current situation or their current life. So those are some things that we know can be helpful when we're thinking about how to address FOMO. All right, so another thing we talked about is motivation. And so this is one that's really important. We know that motivation, it's an essential part of time management, right? It helps you establish your goals, it helps you establish your attitudes, and it does also influence the ways that we choose to spend our time. So sometimes keeping in mind what our motivation is, perhaps it's aligned with your interests or your goals, that can help you decide how important a task is for you. And then that can help you decide where it should fall on your to-do list or where it should fall in relation to how you are choosing to spend your time. Something that can help with motivation is finding different ways to reward yourself. And as someone put in the chat feature or kind of said before, setting realistic goals. That can be a great way to boost your motivation. So when you reach one of those realistic goals, you feel affirmed that you reached the goal, and then you get to set another one. And so all of those things can impact our motivation, but also give us some momentum with that. In thinking about and talking about motivation, I think it's also really important to talk about and consider the days where we're having off days, right? Because the reality is we don't wake up every single morning saying like, I am ready to perform at my best and be my best today. We all have off days. That's a part of being a human being. And so on some days, we may not feel our most motivation. We may not feel our most motivated. And sometimes that can feel kind of scary when we're engaged in things that are important to us. And so something I want to share is thinking about those off days, right? So some days you may wake up and you may feel like, I'm feeling off and I only have 60% to give. If you're used to giving 100% and you wake up one day and you only have 60% to give, then what is human to do is you kind of beat yourself up because you're like, oh, how come I'm not giving 100%? How come I'm not giving 100%? And so instead of operating at that 60% that you initially had to give, you'll actually only be able to operate at 45%. The funny thing is that if instead you wake up in the morning, you're like, all right, I'm having an off day and I'm going to be compassionate with myself, right? I'm going to accept I have 60% to give. And the only thing I'm going to do today is focus on giving the best 60% I can. What you'll actually do is you'll bump that up by 15%. So if you only focus on giving 60% without beating yourself up for not giving 100%, you'll actually be operating at 75%. And so that's a really cool thing. And that's related to being in an expressive mindset. So one trick for remembering how to be in an expressive mindset, but also how to kind of trigger that expressive mindset is to ask yourself this question: when feeling can't, what of this can I do? So when something is feeling really big, or like it's kind of beyond you, when you're feeling that kind of can't, what of this can you do? Okay, I might not be able to do all of it, but I could do this little part. And then just focus on doing that little part. This works with to-do lists. This works with essays. This works with so many different things. It even works with if you're kind of performing or doing different things like that. So again, when feeling can't, what of this can I do? And just focusing on what you can do, what you can have control over, what you can accomplish. In this scene, Max actually saved his sister, right? Like the Sanderson sisters were about to like kill Danny with this potion and steal her soul. And instead, Max was feeling overwhelmed and he was like, how could I ever save her? This is beyond me. Well, what can he do? He can take the potion and drink it himself and save his sister's life. And that's what he did. So Max exhibited this type of expressive mindset in this moment of Hocus Pocus. So with that, we're going to move into thinking about some more concrete strategies, right? We've just talked about things more conceptually and kind of thinking about the ways that we think. Well, now how does this translate into actual tangible strategies that folks use to help manage their time? I invite you to submit some strategies that you've used in the past on this poll everywhere. I see time blocking. I also think there are some questions in the chat feature, so I will look at those now as well. All right, so I see meditation, but sometimes not working, priorities, divide and conquer, Pomodoro method, making lists and schedules, Google Calendar. I see calendar was put in the chat feature as well, Pomodoro technique, but I failed on it. Save it to the last day and finish it very quickly. Categorizing the tasks by urgency and importance, creating an action item list with no more than 3 actionable items, to-do lists, taking short breaks, to-do lists, absolutely. Quota system. I'm interested to hear more about that one. Planning other activities so as to be pressed for time, prioritize. So I'm feeling what some of you are doing is kind of waiting to the last minute, or doing things so that you don't even have much time to begin with. A lot of this is potentially related to kind of fear of failure, which I saw it mentioned in the chat feature. And a lot of it operates by activating your cortisol pathways so that you're actually feeling kind of a neurological response that's pumping up your cortisol as if you're in like fight or flight. And so that makes you kind of act quicker or feel like you have nothing else, no other options but to kind of just approach something in that moment. And that's fine. We'll talk about some strategies for how we can move beyond our neurology in that way, manage our fear well, and kind of move forward, managing our time, but also accomplishing and pursuing those priorities. I see alarms, notes, committed to a time block, meditating, calendar, recording. Awesome. So I want you to take a look at the strategies that your peers are using and have used. I see critical versus urgent. I imagine maybe you label things as critical or urgent, and that impacts how you address them. But I want to kind of center the strategies that you all currently use, because they're really important. And something about time management to know is that you may have strategies that work for you in the past that feel like they're not working right now, and that's okay. With time management in particular, different strategies will work at different times, and they may stop working for periods of time. And so it should be a thing where you kind of cycle through. You may recognize that, like, for a couple of months, you have a few methods that work really well. And when they stop working, you want to have kind of a toolbox to go into to be like, okay, well, I know my friend does this and this works really well for them. Let me try that one. Let me incorporate that into my routines moving forward, knowing that there may not be one thing that works for you forever. So having kind of this toolbox from your friends, from what you're seeing on the screen, and from some of the ones that I will share with you as well, that can help you as you rotate through. All right, so now I'm going to share a few time management strategies with you as well. Many of you have hit on some of these, but these are just kind of some general ones to think about. Ooh, I see using colored pens to visually identify importance. I love using different colors as well. Awesome. So, all right. So the first 3 time management strategies we'll talk about. The first one is writing it down. So keeping a weekly planner to help you stay organized and jot down reminders for the key items that you need. Basically, you maybe you're someone who likes to use a weekly planner, maybe use a monthly planner, maybe use a daily planner, maybe use some combination of both of those things. But having a place where you're able to write down the important deadlines, write down the important things that you need to do is really important, but also having a place that's connected to time. So a place that's connected to days and weeks and months can allow you to visually see it, but also visually plan it over time. It allows you to see, okay, if my essay is due on the 20th, well, now you can put something in on the 10th to start working on it on that day, or whenever it's important for you. But to be able to visually see that over time and see the way that your tasks can be broken down or should be broken down over time can be really important. I see in the chat feature, someone said, me, my planner with too many tasks and meetings. Yeah, so for you, you may recognize like, okay, I have a lot of tasks related to meetings, and I have a lot of tasks related to school. And maybe you decide to have 2 planners, and maybe that system works for you. Or maybe you decide to have 1 planner and you use half the page for your meetings and things related to that and half the page for academics. But finding what works for you, knowing that writing it down is really important. All right, so making it routine. So getting into a routine can reduce some uncertainty about when and how you'll balance your priorities. Routines can be really small and they can also be really big. I've worked with students who are in graduate school and they're coming back to graduate school after having worked for a while, and they say, I want to treat school like a routine, like going to work. So I'm only going to do school between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. And then after that, I'm going to have my outside of school life. And so for some people that works really well to think about like, okay, this is the amount of time I have for my classes. And so therefore I need to go and I need to make sure that I'm getting all my other work done in this amount of time, like before 5 p.m. so that I can start my night. But routines also can look different than that. Routines can be, maybe you have lunch every day and after every day you go to the library and you study or you do work. And yeah, so it can look so many different ways. When we think about routines, the other thing I want to encourage you to think about is, where are you prioritizing your well-being in those routines, right? Because if we're not taking care of ourselves, we're not going to be able to be the most effective time managers. We're not going to be able to put our best selves towards the things that are most important to us. So what do your well-being routines look like? Do you meditate in the mornings? Do you meditate at night? Do you have a morning routine and a nighttime routine? Everyone should have a bedtime routine, right? Our bodies need to have routines that settle down and make us ready to go to sleep at night. Even if your bedtime routine is just brushing your teeth, that's still a routine, and kind of honoring it and setting that intentionality with it as a routine is something that can help us in this way. So thinking about what are the routines that you have right now, and are there routines that you want to add that will help you manage your time more effectively? Setting goals. Some of you talked about this as well. So be specific, set time frames, and think about your goals in more specific ways than just graduate, right? What do you really want out of your time at Columbia? And how can you make sure that you're setting yourself up to have the experiences that you want to have while you are a student here, while you are affiliated? So your goals may be related to the number of people that you meet. Someone you may set goals related to the types of experiences that you want to have in joining different groups, in meeting different professors. There's so many different areas. So really thinking holistically about the experiences that you want to have, and setting some goals or setting some benchmarks for yourself as you go on with that. All right, next one. Yeah, so we got a little Sanderson sister break here. Some more time management strategies include dividing up tasks and taking action, right? So we want to divide up our projects into sub-projects. If we have an essay, could you divide that up into different tasks? Do you want to make an outline? Do you want to think about, well, maybe I'll write the introduction, maybe I'll write the main body. How can you divide up those larger projects into sub-projects? Sorry, I'm seeing some things in the chat feature. All right, how does one overcome procrastination syndrome that might destroy all of the planners and routines, seconded, thirded, fourth? All right, I'm seeing a lot of interest in talking about procrastination. And I'm seeing a lot, yes, so I'm seeing some folks know a lot of strategies and it's hard to act on them. We're gonna move into that in a quick second, okay? So we have like 6 more strategies that we'll go through, and then we'll talk about procrastination. So one other strategy is start with what you don't like. So if procrastination is a problem, then do the most difficult thing first, and you'll get some momentum there, right? So that's really important. Starting with what you don't like. The other thing that's good about that is you'll have a lot of time and energy to focus on that really hard task that you don't like. And it will make it so that it takes less time because you're applying a fresh mind to it. All right, and then staying organized. If you write things down, but you can't find anything, then it kind of doesn't matter that you wrote them down. So making sure that you're staying organized is really important. And organization can look like so many different things for different people. So there's not one way to be organized. And what looks like a mess to one person could be organization to another. All that matters is that it has meaning inside your own head. And that's super important. All right, so take it day by day. This is related to breaking things up. So complete at least one thing every day, even if it's a small part of a larger thing. This can help with procrastination as well, I will name. So if you break things up and you're not trying to do it all at once, but saying like, okay, I just want to do this small task on this day. I'm going to do that one task and then stop. That's something that can help with procrastination. Penciling in time to worry. So someone named early on when we were talking about what are the things that take up your time, they said worrying. And this is actually a time management strategy. So penciling in time to worry. This can also, I like to think about this as thinking about like, I'm not going to cross that bridge until I get there, right? So I may have this, really stressful thing coming up on the horizon, but I'm not going to let myself feel the stress or worry about it until it's here, right? I know that it may start 2 weeks from now. So on the day before, 2 weeks from now, I'm gonna block the day and I'm gonna allow myself to worry. I'm gonna feel what I need to feel on that day. But if we allow ourselves to worry too early, it's gonna get in the way of doing what we need to do. And then powering down during study time. So we need to recognize that as much as possible, detaching from our cell phones, detaching from social media, really just putting all of our time, focus, and energy into what we're doing in a moment, staying mindful would be super, super important. So how can we power down during study time to make sure that we're only paying attention to what is in front of us? All right, I'm interested to hear from you all. Which of the following strategies have you used in the past? All right, so I'm seeing a lot of people have done write it down, setting goals, routines, dividing up tasks and taking action, starting with what you don't like. Awesome, taking it day by day. All right, great. So what I'm going to ask you now is these are all things that we've used in the past. So I'm interested to know, what are some things that you'd like to try moving forward? What's one of these strategies that you may want to try moving forward? All right, so I'm seeing start with what you don't like is one of them. I'm also seeing making routines is important. And then powering down during study time, absolutely, taking it day by day. Awesome. All right, so one of the things that we talked about was building a balance, or was making routines. And part of making routines is building a balanced schedule. So we're going to put a link in the chat feature to a worksheet that some people like to use, but I like to think about it as a game. So if you have 1,440 minutes in each day and you don't get to carry any over, and it resets automatically at midnight every single night, how are you going to break up those 1,440 minutes, knowing that you need sleep, right? Some of those minutes need to go to sleeping. Some of those minutes need to go to meals. You'll have classes and you'll need to do work. You'll need to do academic prep. You need to take care of yourself. All of these things are super important. So some things are non-negotiable. And so what you can do with this worksheet is you can see that you have a finite number of minutes in each day. You can see it visually there. And now the next part is to go and block off the things that are non-negotiable. Block off the things that just need to happen. And then you can visually see what you have left over in each day. So this is one tool that helps for some people as they think about setting their schedule so they can start building routines. It's being able to visually see your time in that way. I see a question. Could you talk a little bit more about powering down during study time? Yes, I'm happy to do that. If you could send any specific questions you may have, if you want advice on how to do it, I think we could do some great crowdsourcing. I know there's a number of apps out there and different websites that help you kind of control your social media use if that's what you're interested in. If we're thinking about why it's important, kind of thinking back to how we talked about multitasking earlier on. So you might not realize it, but you might actually be multitasking when you're doing your work. If you're kind of texting someone, or if you're going through social media as well, you might not realize it, but you may be multitasking without intentionally doing so, which, as we know, a lot of the research shows that it means that our quality of work and quantity of work will go down. Okay, thank you. Why is it important? What it means in general? What is it composed of? And someone says that they were texting when I mentioned it, so busted. Absolutely. So it's important for a huge number of reasons. For me, the biggest one that comes to mind is that it can produce unintentional multitasking. So you may not notice that your mind actually does pay attention to your phone until you turn your phone off and your phone's not an option. If you're feeling a bit of like that kind of like, oh, I feel a little bit empty, then you might recognize that like, ooh, you kind of have an attachment to your phone. So it's just something that takes energy away from what we should be focusing on in a moment. And so as much as possible, being able to kind of fully power down and get space away from it, that can allow us to put all of our time and energy into the present thing that we're looking at. All right, I see another thing in the chat feature that says, doesn't worrying come naturally without us having to think that we can worry now? or later at a scheduled time. Sometimes worrying or time wasting on social media could be a compulsive behavior. Yes, I don't know that I fully understand the first question, but I will agree that sometimes worrying or time wasting on social media could be a compulsive behavior. And sometimes it's a habit, or it's something that we do that turns into a habit over time that we don't realize that we kind of continue to rely on. And I guess I will say, like, worrying does come naturally. And when we apply a lens of mindfulness to it, we're able to recognize that our thoughts don't need to become our entire states of mind, right? So you can feel an emotion at a moment in time, and recognize that it's an emotion. It's informed by a few different things, but our emotions don't need to become our thoughts and feelings fully. They're able to kind of be separate in our minds. And so when we think about applying a lens of mindfulness, we're able to watch and see the things that are in it, like watch and kind of experience the thoughts that are going on inside of our heads without taking them on as being an absolute truth. And so that can be helpful when we think about worrying. So you may kind of have a fleeting moment of worry. And if we're not applying kind of some mindfulness to it, then it can turn into a generalized state of worry. But if instead we kind of say, oh, I just had a fleeting moment of worry, let me like pause and kind of try to observe that a little bit more. You can learn about it. You can try to watch it and see, like, does it have a shape? Is it moving? If I were to just watch it and observe it, what happens to it? That allows us to kind of understand an emotion at a moment in time and put some context around it to decide how we want to feel about it, or how it kind of turns into a thought from there. We could talk a ton more about that, and I'm sorry if that was a little bit confusing, but that is to say, a worry can be an emotion at a moment in time. It doesn't need to become a generalized state, and we can schedule out time to experience worry and to feel some of the fleeting feelings we may have felt, if it makes us feel more able to control those feelings in a moment. All right, so sometimes your time management will fall to the wayside. And I know that a bunch of us want to talk about procrastination. So that's slightly different, right? That becomes a pattern of time management falling to the wayside. But if we're not in that place of it being a pattern yet, it is okay to recognize that time, it will happen, right? You'll have days where you don't manage your time well, and that just kind of is what it is. So it's recognizing that these strategies can be flexible, and you actually do need to give yourself a little bit of grace as you're recognizing what works best for you. Different tips can be used at different times, and we all slip up, right? Like, we're all human, and we can't judge ourselves harshly every single time that happens. So my question is, has anyone ever procrastinated? I know we've had some who have already shared with us that they have. And I will say my answer to this is yes, absolutely. I'm seeing big yes. All right, awesome. So what is procrastination all about? It's not about laziness. It is about your priorities. And in many cases, our emotions can actually influence our procrastination. So how we feel about a task can influence the ways that we relate with the task. If we feel bored by something, if we feel disinterested in something, we may be more likely to procrastinate on it. But the other thing that I want to name is that a lot of times procrastination can also stem from a fear of failure. So procrastination is actually a neurological response to anytime we're engaging on something that's important to us. Anytime something is important to us, there's three things that automatically happen. So anytime something's important to you, there will always be uncertainty, right? You can never fully control the future of what's important to you. So there's always uncertainty. The second thing is that there's always a cost. If you were to lose or fail at what's important to you, then you would feel hurt in some form or fashion. You might feel like you failed. Those are all costs. The third thing that's always true anytime we're dealing with something that's important to us is that there's also always a perceived evaluation. So we always recognize that when we're acting on something that matters to us, while we are evaluating the ways that we're doing on our own, we're also aware that people around us are evaluating us, however we're doing related to whatever it is that's important to us. So these three things, this perceived evaluation, this cost, and this uncertainty, these three things combine to create this type of pressure that really is fear of failure. And so you may recognize it in your friends who are like, you know what, I have a lot on my plate right now. I'm just under a lot of pressure. anytime someone's saying that, many times it could be that they're managing a fear of failure. And the thing is that our neurological or natural responses to feeling that type of pressure or fear of failure are to over control something, so to perfect it, or to procrastinate, right? To avoid until we have to. And so this is our neurological coping mechanism, and it tends to be kind of a cycle of both of them, right? So it tends to be a cycle of perfecting and procrastinating. And sometimes we do more of one than the other, but oftentimes it's a cycle of both of them. And so with this, we can achieve excellence through this, but all of it kind of together is this fear-based model of excellence. And so while we can achieve excellence, it comes at a cost. And that cost tends to be to our mental health, to our well-being, but also there tends to be a ceiling effect. There tends to be a ceiling in terms of our effectiveness and our performance. And this is called the plateau effect. It happens when we become very, very dependent on outcomes and comparisons. And we're continually asking the question of how am I doing? How am I doing? But more importantly, how am I doing related to other people around me? And on days when we don't achieve those outcomes like grades, positive evaluations, or affirmations from others, our fear tends to increase, and that makes us need more outcomes to make up for that bad day. So all this is to say that like procrastinating, it's natural. It is a neurological coping mechanism anytime we're managing something that's important to us. I see that there's a little bit in a chat, so let me take a quick second to see the questions that I'm seeing here. All right. So I'm seeing folks identifying as procrastinators and perfectionists. Yeah. So how do we overcome procrastination, right? What does that look like? A lot of it involves some self-reflection, as kind of contrary as that may sound, doing some self-reflection to gain that self-awareness, and allowing for a degree of forgiveness and compassion with ourselves. Are you experiencing fear of failure, and where is that stemming from? Is that stemming from self-imposed pressure? Is that stemming from other people? But what's at the root of that? What are the values that you're trying to express with that? What are the values? What are the things that are most important to you? And how can you think about just focusing your time and energy to expressing those values? Recognizing that anytime you feel fear, anytime you feel that fear of failure, it means that you're engaged in something that matters to you. And how can we see that as an emotion of importance that drives us? Where it's not centering us, it's not in the foreground, but it's something where we see it and it's an indicator that, yep, I'm engaged in something that matters to me. And how fantastic is that? And with that, change plans can be really helpful. So making a plan that that is dictating for yourself, hey, why do you want to change? Why do you want to stop procrastinating? But also, what could that look like in a reasonable way for you? Do you typically procrastinate for like 3 hours a day? Great. Maybe try procrastinating for 2 hours a day. Moving forward. Maybe you try that for a week. Maybe even you start by moving it down by a half hour. But that's one way that you see we can kind of connect some of these strategies that we've talked about already, between thinking about like strategies for time management and like breaking things down, setting goals that are realistic, and putting them together to create a plan for ourselves. If we're deciding that procrastination is something that we really want to kind of move away from. Staying organized, using a calendar, being realistic. This is where like knowing yourself can come into it. So if you know that you will procrastinate on something, maybe it's actually creating your to-do list with that in mind. Maybe it's creating your calendar with that in mind, right? It's saying like, okay, my essay is due on Saturday. I know I won't start it before Friday. So that gives me so much other time earlier in the week. How can I utilize that time to do other things that I want to do? When you leave so much time for things that you know you're going to procrastinate on anyways, then your procrastination is amplified. If you've decided that's just a part of the way that you work, create your schedule around that, right? And then it's not necessarily procrastination anymore because you're planning for it. Be realistic, consider your surroundings, notice your self-talk, break things down and commit to a small task. The last one is create an unschedule. So this may look like thinking about all the things that you want to do. So maybe it's dinner, maybe it's going to a show, maybe it's checking out a museum, and putting only those things on your schedule. And then when you look at your time that you have available, you see, okay, so from 5 to 8, I have this thing at night, and maybe I have a lunch during the day over here. And so those are the things that you represent on your schedule. And then it's like, all right, outside of that, I just got to get my to-do list done. But for some people, kind of staying focused in that way of their eyes are set on the things that they most want to do, it kind of makes their work feel more aspirational. So that's another tactic that some people find helpful. So we talked about making a change plan for procrastination. And at the core of this, you need to recognize that if you don't write down or know why it's important that you change, then you likely won't change. If you do want to stop procrastinating, you need to sit down, you need to have that reflection with yourself and think about, why is it important that I stop doing this? Why is it important that I change? As soon as you decide that, that's what will allow you to start making that change. But if you don't think it's important to change, if you don't think it's important to stop procrastinating, then you won't. So decide what it is for you, decide why it's important to you, write it down on a Post-it note, write it down somewhere that you'll see it again in the future, so you understand why it's important. Is it important to you because for me, when I first started to make my change plan, it was important to me because my well-being was important to me. I saw the ways that my procrastination was getting in the way of my mental and emotional health, and I decided that that's important to me. I want to stop procrastinating because I value my mental and emotional health, and how can I work towards expressing that more and more consistently? Planning for rewards. So thinking about, like, what are those milestones? If you procrastinate a half hour less for 1 week, like, how can you reward yourself? That's a really big deal, right? But also recognizing that, like, those are short-term things. How can you also think about long-term things as well? And then the last part is recognizing your support system. Your support system is super, super important, and they can be a really big part of helping you make whatever changes you may want to make. There are resources to help you. So in my team, we do virtual and in-person health education appointments. We talk to a lot of students about time management. We do a lot of work around procrastination as well. So this may look like actually getting to do some problem solving with you, some brainstorming, some thinking about, like, okay, this is your situation. How can we work together to come up with a plan that feels realistic and accessible for you? And with that, there's also counseling and psychological services. So they actually run a support space that's weekly, where you can go in and you can talk about procrastination. You can talk about time management with them as well. You have academic advisors, and you have your friends and fellow peers, fellow students. You all are the only ones who know what it's like to be full-time students or students enrolled in the ways that you are at this moment in time. And we could never overstate the value that you all have to each other. So learn what's working for people around you, and even just having community and knowing, like, all right, I'm not alone. There are other folks who are experiencing this, can be really helpful. Now, what do you stand to gain by effective time management? A schedule that's primed for academic success, a balance that prioritizes quality over quantity, increased confidence with setting and meeting goals, and free time that's actually free, right? Imagine that. So that's what I have for you today. I'm going to look at some of the questions in the chat feature, but also open it up for chat for more questions right now. If you wouldn't mind taking the surveys that they just put in the chat feature, that would be fantastic. You can scan the QR code on the screen as well. And if you're interested in chatting more with me, my email is on the screen as well. Please feel free to reach out. Thank you so much. And again, I'll open up for questions, and I know I have to scroll up because I think there are 1 or 2 questions up there as well. All right, I see one question. Could you please share tools for organizing tasks? Yeah, so I will open the door. If anyone has advice to give related to tools for organizing tasks, I invite you to share that now. And what I will talk about is thinking about categorizing. So when you think about organizing tasks, there's so many different ways to categorize them. that can help you approach that list or approach those tasks. You may think about tasks in a temporal way. So you may think about, okay, these are the tasks that need to get done before this date. If you have a bunch of tasks that have a common due date, maybe they get all grouped together. Maybe there are tasks where you do them better in the morning. For me, when I'm doing data analysis, I know I can't do that in the afternoon. I will not have the headspace for it. So thinking about, are there types of tasks that you would be better suited to doing at a particular time of day, and how can you schedule yourself to do them at that time of day? Another thing I will share related to organizing tasks is thinking about urgency. So you might have something on your to-do list, and it may be like, it would be nice if I got to it today, versus this absolutely has to get done today. So sometimes creating priorities within our to-do lists and within our tasks can help us get to them in ways where we know, okay, this is most important. I'm going to do this first. This is something, it's nice that I get it done. It could contribute to momentum, but it doesn't absolutely have to get done. Messi, can you show the last slide again? Absolutely. If you want to go back again, let me know. And those are some tips for organizing tasks. If anyone else has things they'd recommend, please share them there. Any apps that I would recommend, I'm going to crowdsource that one out there. So if you have app recommendations, I would ask you to share those in the chat feature as well. All right, I see someone said, in the end half of things are undone except for the assignments. I'm not able to do me time. Any suggestions for that? So yes, thinking about how to have time for you. A bit of that maybe actually can, like, for some people, this is related to powering down. So we talked about kind of cutting off electronics. Oftentimes our connections to our phones or to electronics get in the way of me time. That's one of the biggest things that I've experienced. So if your phone is off, if your computer is off, and you've gotten through your to-do list, and you're sitting there and you're kind of bored, that's when things come in your mind where you can actually think about, like, oh, this might be me time. And there are ways to kind of plan for it too, so that it can be more structured. Maybe you think about, like, what is a hobby that you've wanted to do, or what is something that you've wanted to intentionally try for a little while, and maybe creating like a list for yourself. So you may not have time to do me time right now, but you see something maybe on social media where you're like, oh, that's a cool thing to bake. I want to add that to my list of things to do during me time. Or just kind of have a running list, so that if you're someone who's more like, I need things to do during me time, you kind of have that list to go to where you're like, all right, I finished my to-do list. Now I have me time. What are some things that I've wanted to do over the past few weeks that, that I can kind of start going to right now? And I think the other thing I would just name there is kind of thinking about some mindfulness. So how can you kind of connect with your body and your mind and physical spaces? Because sometimes your body and your mind may need different things, and creating space to be attuned to that and listen to that is really, really important. I'm seeing some great conversation in the chat feature, including sharing things that have worked for folks in the past. And I see an app recommendation is Forest. It grows a forest when you stay off your phone and focus. It helps you visualize your progress and time you spent on things besides your phone. And I see a lot of people use Google Calendar to block time, or Notion for their workspace. All fantastic recommendations. Are there any questions or things that folks want to talk about anymore? I see Study Bunny is a good one. Digital Wellbeing by Android/Google. Some great recommendations out there. All right, well, with that, I will hang around for a few more minutes, but I want to thank you all so much for coming today, chatting and engaging. Yes, thank you so much for having me. Happy Halloween, happy October, and please reach out if you want to connect further about any of this.
Thank you so much, Kelly. Look at all these wonderful messages. Thank you all so much for coming. I learned a lot for sure as well. The hocus pocus was seamlessly put into this presentation. Beautiful.